It was barely 8:45 a.m., but this Monday was already turning into the worst one of my life. I had kissed my wife Marissa goodbye earlier that morning. We'd been together for 15 years, and she was a highly successful real estate agent, judging by the thick stack of commissions and bonuses she regularly brought home. "Have a good day," she said in that overly rehearsed realtor tone I couldn't stand. Her smug little smile made it feel like she was hiding something, which only added to my irritation. On my way to the office, my mind kept racing through the pile of reports I had to finish before the end of the month. I got in at my usual time, 7:45, dropped off my briefcase, and headed to the restroom to grab a quick coffee. That's when everything took a wild turn. Out of nowhere, I felt a sharp, stabbing pain down below that made me yell out. My boss, Alan Randall, came rushing in, looking worried. I told him about the burning sensation, and we both noticed a disturbing green discharge. Alan didn't hesitate. He urged me to get medical help immediately and told me not to worry about the workload. He'd cover the reports and suggested I take some time off. Grateful for his support and calmness, I thanked him and gathered my things. I splashed cold water on my face, picked up my briefcase, and told the receptionist I wouldn't be back for at least a day, maybe more. Normally, I would have gone to my usual doctor, but his office was all the way across town, and I doubted I could get in today. So I headed to the nearby urgent care clinic just a few blocks away. They took samples right away and had me wait. Though it felt like forever, it was only about 30 minutes before a nurse sharply called out, "Greg Watson." Her expression made me feel like I'd done something wrong. Still, I followed her into the exam room. "Take a seat, Mr. Watson," she said flatly. I sat down while she checked my blood pressure, temperature, basic vitals, with little to no small talk. After noting everything down, she told me the doctor would be in shortly and left. A few minutes later, an older man in a white coat walked in, holding a folder. "Mr. Watson, I'm Dr. Smith," he introduced himself, then sat and opened the folder. He didn't sugarcoat anything. "Your test shows you've got gonorrhea." "Gonorrhea?" I repeated, stunned. "Yes, it's a sexually transmitted infection," Dr. Smith said, giving me a look like I should have known better. "I'll prescribe antibiotics, and you need to avoid sex for at least a week after you finish the meds. If symptoms remain, follow up with your primary physician." The news felt like a punch in the gut. Still, Dr. Smith's blunt delivery helped me stay grounded. I nodded, trying to absorb what came next. He added that more tests were being processed and could take a few weeks for full results. Then he asked for a list of recent sexual partners. "I've only ever been with one woman, my wife," I said. He gave me a brief, pitying look before double-checking my chart. "If I caught it from her, wouldn't she have symptoms?" I asked. "Not always," he replied. "She might think it's a bladder infection or something similar, but she needs to be tested as soon as possible. Waiting could lead to serious health issues." "Excuse me, Mr. Watson," he said, handing me a prescription and some paperwork to sign. "Take care of yourself and be sure to follow up with your doctor." Feeling overwhelmed, I left the clinic and walked to my car. I called my boss to give him an update. "I'm sorry to hear that, Greg," Alan said. "Don't worry. Your privacy is safe. Take all the time you need. I've got your reports covered." "Thanks," I said, ending the call. The next step was talking to my parents. I've never kept anything from them. I hit speed dial, and my dad picked up. "Hey son, are you at work?" he asked. "No, Dad. I've got a health situation and need to speak with you and Mom." "Of course," he said quickly. "Are the kids okay?" They're fine, I replied, but I'd rather talk in person. Come over then. We'll make coffee and talk, he offered. We hung up, and I slipped my phone back into my pocket, bracing myself for a conversation I never thought I'd have. I should probably tell you a bit about my past. My sister Denise and I were raised in a deeply religious and said, "That was Gina. She can see you today at 12:30. Someone canceled. Make sure you bring your financial records and tax returns from the past 2 years." "Okay," I replied, realizing I'd have to go home and start gathering documents. "I guess I better get moving then." "That's a good idea," Dad agreed. "And son, you'll have to tell Marissa about the STD. She needs to be tested too, for everyone's safety." "Maybe the girls should stay with us for a while," Mom suggested gently. "Things might get a little tense at home." "You're right," Dad agreed. "Why don't you bring them over after school? We'll make sure they get to school on time." "I will. Thanks, Dad," I said, deeply grateful. We talked for a little longer, then I stood to leave. At the door, Dad gave me another hug. "It's going to be okay, son," he said, "but don't do anything you'll regret. I know you're hurting. I know you're angry. But remember Romans 12:19. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Don't make me have to bail you out of jail. Think about your girls." I smirked. "Don't worry, Dad, I hear you." Back in the car, his words stuck with me. I did want revenge for what Marissa had done to me after 15 years of loyalty, love, and sacrifice. It felt like she had taken everything and just set it on fire. When I got home, I started digging through my office for the tax documents Dad mentioned. While gathering my own returns, I remembered that years ago, maybe 8 or so, Marissa suggested we file taxes separately to save money. Back then, it made sense. But as I started reviewing her forms, I noticed something strange. Her income was way higher than I expected, especially from bonuses and commissions, yet only a portion had ever gone into our joint account. Where had the rest gone? My curiosity turned to concern. I kept searching and found a folder containing statements from a bank I'd never even heard of. The most recent one showed nearly $1 million in savings accumulated over the past 8 years. What was she planning? Was this for college? Retirement? Or was she preparing to leave me? My mind raced. I grabbed all the paperwork and slid it into my folder to take with me. Just as I was about to head out, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Marissa. She said she'd be late because of a home showing and not to wait for dinner. "Yeah, right," I muttered. I texted back, "No problem. See you when you get home." But I didn't add my usual "I love you." I wondered if she'd notice. I arrived at Gina Hawkins' office building, parked, and headed up to her suite. A polished blonde receptionist greeted me. "I'm here to see Gina Hawkins." "I've got a 12:30 appointment," I told her. She checked the computer, smiled, and led me to Gina's office. Gina stood to greet me, shaking my hand warmly. "Good to see you, Greg," she said kindly. "Would you like some coffee?" "That'd be great, thanks," I replied. Gina turned to the receptionist. "Could you bring 2 coffees, please? Maybe some butter and a few nuts, too?" "Of course," the receptionist replied, disappearing out the door. She returned quickly with 2 cups of coffee and small packets of butter. Gina motioned for me to sit, and I settled into the chair across from her desk. "I was surprised to get your dad's call this morning," she said. "He said you're going through something serious." "Yeah, it looks like Marissa's been cheating on me," I said, the words still bitter in my mouth. Gina's expression softened. "I'm really sorry to hear that. I always thought you two were rock solid." So did I muttered. But apparently I was wrong. Can you tell me what my options are? I explained everything. My visit to urgent care, the diagnosis, and the surprise bank account I discovered earlier. Gina nodded as she listened, taking it all in. I know this is overwhelming, she said, but let me break it down. Divorce laws in this state are no fault, meaning you don't have to prove wrongdoing. But if you have evidence of adultery, especially something concrete, it can definitely help your case. What about the STD? I asked. She gave it to me. That's strong, Gina confirmed. But her attorney might argue that you caught it somewhere else. We know it's not true, but we'd still have to convince the judge. And the hidden savings? She could claim it was meant for retirement or the kids, Gina said. But it sounds more like she's been preparing to leave, probably planning to do it quietly once your daughters were older. Proving that would be tough though, right? I asked. It could be, she admitted. But we might consider hiring a private investigator. It's not cheap, but it could give us solid proof. Let's do it, I said without hesitation. Okay, Gina replied. I'll need everything you've got, car details, license plate, places she visits. I pulled out my phone. Actually, when she lost her phone a few months ago, I installed a tracker app. Let me check. I opened the app and, sure enough, her phone was active, located at a house on the north side of town. Gina jotted down the address. Perfect, she said. I'll have my investigator check it out right away. She made the call right there, giving all the details to her contact. Once she hung up, she turned back to me. We'll be discreet. If there's something going on, we'll uncover it. Okay, I said, taking a deep breath. That was Gina, he told me. She can see you today at 12:30. Someone canceled last minute. Make sure you bring your financial documents and tax returns from the last 2 years, he added. Okay, I said, realizing I had some paperwork to gather. I'd better head back inside and pack my things. That's a good idea, Dad agreed. And you know you'll have to tell Marissa about the STD. She needs to get tested too, so no one else ends up sick. Maybe the girls should stay with us for a while, Mom suggested. Things might get tense at home. You're right, Dad nodded. Have them stay a few days until things cool down. Look, son, why don't you bring them over after school? We'll make sure they get to school on time. I will. Thanks, Dad, I said. We talked a little more before I stood up to leave. Dad gave me a hug at the door. It'll be okay, son, he said gently. Just don't do anything reckless. I know you're hurt and probably thinking about getting back at Marissa. But remember Romans 12:19. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. Don't make me have to come bail you out of jail. Think about your girls. I gave him a slight grin. Don't worry, Dad. I've got it. I got back in my car and headed home. Dad was right about one thing. I absolutely wanted revenge. After more than 15 years of loving her and only her, this felt like a knife in the back. When I got home, I started digging through my files to find my old tax records. I also needed to find Marissa's because around 8 years ago, she'd suggested we file separately to save money. At the time, it made sense. But when I opened her returns, I saw the real reason behind her suggestion. Marissa had made far more in bonuses and commission than I ever knew. Looking at how little she'd deposited into our joint account, I started wondering where the rest had gone. My digging led me to a folder filled with bank statements from a financial institution I didn't recognize. The latest one showed she'd quietly saved nearly $1 million over the past 8 years. What was she planning? Was it meant for the girls' college? Or was this her escape fund? I gathered the statements and her tax documents, put them into a folder, and went out to the car. Just as I was about to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from Marissa. She said she'd be late because of a home showing and told me not to wait for dinner. "Yeah, right," I muttered under my breath. I replied, "No problem. See you when you get home." I didn't include "I love you" like I always did. I couldn't help but wonder if she'd notice. I reached Gina Hawkins's office building, parked, and headed up to her suite. As I walked in, I was greeted by a pretty blonde receptionist. "I'm here to see Gina Hawkins," I said. "I've got a 12:30 appointment." After a quick glance at her screen, she smiled and led me to Gina's office. Gina stood to greet me, shook my hand warmly, and said, "Good to see you, Greg." Her smile was kind. "Would you like some coffee?" "That would be great, thank you," I replied. She turned to the receptionist. "Could you bring 2 cups of coffee, please? Maybe some butter and nuts, too?" "Sure," the receptionist said, disappearing down the hall. She came back shortly with 2 mugs and little packets of butter. Gina motioned for me to sit, and I took a seat across from her. "I was surprised when your father called this morning," she began. "He said you're dealing with something serious." "Yeah, looks like Marissa's been cheating on me," I said, trying to sound more composed than I felt. "I'm sorry to hear that," Gina said sincerely. "I always thought you two were rock solid." "So did I replied. "But I guess I was wrong. Can you walk me through my options?" I laid out everything: my visit to urgent care, the diagnosis, the hidden bank account. Gina listened carefully, her face thoughtful. "I know this is incredibly tough," she said. "Let me explain a bit about how divorce works in this state. It's less about what's right and more about finances. We have no-fault divorce laws here, but you can still file based on adultery, if you've got solid proof." "What about the STD she gave me?" I asked. "That's definitely a strong point," she said. "But her attorney might argue you got it from someone else. We both know that's not true, but we'd need to convince a judge." "And the hidden money?" "She might claim it was saved for retirement or something for the kids," Gina answered. "But honestly, it looks more like an escape plan." "So she was probably just waiting for the right moment to leave," I said bitterly. "Maybe after the girls graduated." "Exactly," Gina agreed. "Proving that in court might be tough," I said, starting to feel hopeless. "Not necessarily," Gina replied calmly. "I can hire a private investigator. It'll cost some money, but it could give us the solid proof we need for court." "Yeah, let's do it," I agreed without hesitation. "Great," Gina said. "I'll need whatever details you can give me. Her car's make and model, license plate, places she goes." I pulled out my phone. "Actually, I put a tracking app on her phone a few months ago when she lost it. Let me check if it's still working." I opened the app and saw her location, a house on the north side of town. I showed Gina the address. "Perfect," she said, jotting it down. "I'll call my investigator now." She made the call and passed along everything we had. Once she hung up, she gave me a firm, confident look. "We'll keep this as low-key as possible," she promised. "Okay, we're good to go. If something's happening, we'll know soon." "Now let's talk about your situation. You've got 2 teenage daughters, Lisa and Ginger, right? Ages 14 and 13. "That's right," I nodded. "They're not quite old enough to choose who they want to live with, but they're close. Are you planning to ask for custody?" "Yes. I want them with me." "Understood," Gina said. Courts often lean toward giving custody to the mother, but we can definitely build a strong case for you, especially with what's going on." "Who's been the primary caregiver?" she asked. "Well, Marissa's usually out in the evenings. I've been the one at home with the girls," I explained. "Got it," she said. Then, more carefully, "Just to confirm, are you completely sure the girls are biologically yours?" "I believe so, yes. But even if they aren't, does it really matter? My name's on both birth certificates, and I've raised them since they were born," I said, slightly defensive. "I get it," Gina said gently. "Still, it might be smart to confirm. I can connect you with a lab for a DNA test if you're open to it." "I'll think about it," I said. "What about your house? Any mortgage?" "No," I told her. "The house used to be my grandparents'. It's in a family trust under my parents' names. They let us live there." "That helps," she nodded. "No mortgage to sort out, but we'll still need to split up personal belongings and maybe other assets. I'll make a list of everything that needs to be addressed." "Anything I should take care of right now?" I asked. "Not at the moment," she said. "I'll get started on the paperwork, but let's wait to see what the investigator uncovers before we move too far ahead. In the meantime, work through the checklist I give you." "Do you think I should confront her about all this?" I asked. "It might be a good idea to at least tell her she needs to get tested for STDs to stop anything else from spreading. It's important for both of you," she replied. "Yeah, that makes sense," I agreed. Gina wrapped up the meeting, handed me a checklist, and gave me the lab's contact info. "Is there anything else I should know?" I asked. "That's all for now," she said. "Finish the tasks on the list, and we'll call you as soon as we hear from the investigator. If you have questions about costs, talk to my assistant. And Greg?" "Yeah?" I looked up. "Don't do anything impulsive. We'll get through this together. It won't be easy, but it'll get better." "I understand," I said, grateful for her support. "Thanks for everything." "You're welcome," she replied. "We'll stay in touch." I left her office, wrote a check for her services, and drove straight to the lab. After picking up the DNA kit, I stopped by the bank to confirm some of the details Gina had flagged. Then I headed home. Some people might have turned to a bottle after a day like this, drowning in regret and frustration. But I've never been one to drink. Another one of those values my parents drilled into me. No booze, no excuses. I stuck to it. Instead, I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table. Just as I poured the first sip, my 2 daughters came bursting through the front door. They usually got home around this time, taking the school bus. They looked surprised to see me. "Daddy, you're home," Lisa said. "Are you okay?" "Yes, Daddy." "Why are you home so early?" Ginger asked. "It's been a rough day," I told them gently. "Listen, I need you both to pack a bag for a few nights. You're going to stay at your grandparents' house for a little while." "Why, Daddy?" Ginger asked, her voice full of worry. "Did something happen? Is Mom okay? Did you guys fight?" "Well, yes," I began. "Something's wrong, but your mom and I haven't argued yet. That might happen later," I said, trying to keep the conversation from getting too heavy. "You caught her cheating, didn't you?" Lisa's question caught me completely off guard. I blinked in surprise. "What makes you think that?" I asked gently. She looked down, clearly uneasy. "I've heard her on the phone a few times," she admitted. She was using that fake voice. "The one you always say sounds phony." I nodded, encouraging her to go on. She said something like, "I can't wait to see you again, love," and then she giggled. It didn't sound like her at all. It felt really personal. I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner. I know you hate gossip, she added quickly. It's okay, I reassured her, pulling her into a hug. Lisa continued. She's just been weird lately, like she doesn't want to talk to us anymore. Do you feel that way too, Ginger? I asked, turning to my younger daughter. She nodded. Yeah, it's like we're annoying her or something. I hugged them both tighter. You can never bother me, okay? I smiled. But right now, I need to do a cheek swab. Cheek swab? Ginger asked, staring at the test kit. Yes, I confirmed. My lawyer says we should do a DNA test. You don't think we're really your daughters? Lisa asked, her voice quivering. I know you're mine, I said quickly, reassuring her. This is just something we need for legal reasons. So, you're getting a divorce? Lisa asked bluntly. It looks that way, I admitted. Isn't there any chance you could forgive her? Ginger asked softly. I don't think so, I replied. She made a big mistake, one that caused me to see a doctor this morning. Lisa's eyes widened, and she nearly cursed under her breath. Sorry, she mumbled. It's okay, I said with a faint smile. I felt like swearing today, too. Let's get these done. I gently swabbed Lisa's cheek, then Ginger's. Once their samples were sealed, I swabbed my own and placed it in a separate vial. All right, you two go upstairs and pack for a couple nights. We'll leave in 15 minutes. Don't forget your schoolwork, I added. As they ran upstairs to get their things, I sorted the DNA kit and checked it one last time. My plan was simple. Drop them off at my parents', then take the samples to the lab. While we drove, Lisa asked, Daddy, if you and Mom get divorced, can I stay with you? Yeah, me too, Ginger added. I hope so, girls, I replied. I'm going to ask the court for custody, but you should know that courts usually side with the mother. I don't want to live with her, Lisa said quietly. I hate her right now for what she did to us. I considered telling her not to hate her mom, but I didn't. Her words mirrored how I felt inside. I understand, sweetheart, I said. Just know that no matter what happens, I love you both so much, and I'll always be here for you. I love you too, Daddy, Lisa whispered, tears running down her face. Her tears made my determination even stronger. Anger toward Marissa fueled something in me, but then my father's words echoed in my head. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. It helped steady me. We pulled up to my parents' house. I kissed both girls and promised I'd call them later. My dad greeted them with warm hugs as they carried their bags inside. My mom stepped out to welcome us too. I should get to the lab before they close, I said. You doing okay? Dad asked, concern written all over his face. As okay as I can be considering, I replied. We'll pray for you, he said. Keep us updated, especially when you talk to Marissa. I will, though I don't know when that will be, I answered. It's all right, son, Mom added softly. You can call whenever you're ready. Thanks, I said, hugging her. I should head out now. With a mix of support from my family and the emotional weight of everything ahead, I got back in my car and drove to the lab. I arrived about half an hour before closing and handed the kit to the receptionist. How soon will the results be ready? I asked. By the end of the week, she replied with a gentle smile. Great. Thanks, I said and left. On the drive home, I felt like I needed to talk to someone who could help me understand Marissa's behavior a little better. So I made a decision. I called her sister, Loretta. I connected my Bluetooth earpiece and dialed her number. She picked up after the second ring. Hey, Greg, How's my favorite brother-in-law? Loretta greeted cheerfully. I've had better days, I replied. Do you have a minute to talk? Of course, she responded. What's going on? Have you spoken to Marissa recently? Not since the family gathering last month at your place, I said. Actually, things aren't great. I gave her a quick rundown of the situation, keeping it brief but clear. Oh my God, Loretta gasped when I finished. Greg, I hate to say this, but it sounds like she's slipping back into her old ways. Old ways? I repeated, confused. Loretta hesitated. Marissa was pretty wild when she was younger. She went through boyfriends like changing outfits. She wasn't loyal to any of them in high school or college. I thought she'd changed after she met you. She even told me you were her soulmate and that her past was behind her. I didn't think I needed to bring it up before. I appreciate that, but I wish I'd known, I admitted. I'm sorry, Greg. I really should have said something, she said. It's okay, Loretta. It's not your fault, I replied, doing my best to keep my emotions steady. Listen, I know she'll need a place to stay. I was wondering, could she possibly stay with you for a while? There was a pause before Loretta sighed. She might be able to stay here for a bit until she gets herself together, she said. Frank won't be happy about it, though. I don't want to cause any problems between you two, I said, genuinely concerned. It's all right. He'll deal with it, as long as it's not for too long, she reassured me. Thanks. I really appreciate it. I'm not sure when she'll be home tonight, but I'll let you know when she's heading your way, I said. Thank you, Loretta replied. How are the girls doing with all this? They're upset, but handling it better than I expected, I answered. You've raised strong young ladies, Greg. Stay strong for them, she encouraged. I'm trying, I said. I need to make dinner now. We'll talk later, okay? I will, I promised, and we ended the call. Back home, I heated up some leftover meatloaf for dinner. Just as I was finishing, the phone rang again. It was Gina, my lawyer. I glanced at the clock. It was just past 6:30 p.m. Hey, I greeted her. Working late tonight? For you, yes, Gina replied. I've got some early results from the private investigator. It looks like Marissa's been very active. She's met with 3 men since this afternoon. I was floored. 3 men in one day? How does she even have time? Yes, Gina confirmed. I'm sending the information over now. Photos, video, and a summary. I'd suggest you don't watch the footage, but you should listen to the last few minutes of the audio. It's very telling. So, do you think you have enough to move forward with the divorce? Absolutely, I said firmly. Good. Listen to that audio, then give me a call, she instructed. Will do. Thanks, Gina, I said and hung up, feeling a mix of rage and relief that progress was being made. I opened my laptop and checked my email. There was the video Gina mentioned. I skipped ahead to the part she'd marked. I didn't want to see Marissa in such an intimate moment with someone else, but I needed to understand what was being said. I see you're married, the man said, eyeing her rings. For now, Marissa replied casually. You're married too, she noted, glancing at his hand. Yeah, but my wife and I have an open relationship, he explained. And you? He asked. It's not officially open, but I take my freedoms where I can, she replied. So your husband doesn't know? He pushed. No, he has no clue, she admitted. I felt a cold bitterness settle in my chest. He really didn't know the kind of woman he married. Isn't he good to you at home? The man asked. He'd better be. I taught him everything he knows, she bragged. You taught him, he asked, surprised. Was he that clueless when you married? Believe it or not, he was a 23-year-old virgin, she said with a laugh. Super religious, doesn't drink, smoke, or even swear. He'd probably freak out if I cursed in front of him. He didn't even know how to have sex until we got married. Damn, the man reacted. Sounds like you think he's a joke. So why stay with him? Do you still love him? In some ways, maybe. He's a great dad. He takes care of our girls and doesn't say a word when I come home late. But beyond that, he's boring, she admitted. Are the girls even his? The man asked curiously. She shrugged. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe. Doesn't really matter. Matter much to me. He thinks they're his, and that's all that counts, she said with a shrug. How long have you been messing around? He asked. Honestly, I've been enjoying myself the whole time we've been married, she answered casually. He's still clueless. Hasn't been with anyone else, so he wouldn't know the difference. That's it? He questioned. That's it, she confirmed. Hearing her reduce our life and our family to nothing more than a joke crushed me. The betrayal ran far deeper than I had imagined. I had to fight the urge to vomit. It made me physically ill to think she'd treated me like this our entire marriage. Do you plan to stay with him? Yeah, for now, she said. At least until the girls graduate high school and head off to college. That's 4, maybe 5 years. I'll have everything in place by then. Why wait? He pressed. Because courts usually award custody to the mother, and the last thing I want is to be stuck raising 2 teenage girls on my own, she explained coldly. What do you plan to do after that? I want to celebrate. Maybe get together with a few guys, go on a cruise, or retire somewhere like Costa Rica. I haven't decided yet, she replied. I've got a couple of weekends in mind. Think you can sneak away? He asked. Sure. I'll just tell Greg I've got some mandatory seminar or training. He'll believe whatever I tell him, she said with a laugh. Just let me know the date and time. You've got my number, he said. I'll call you, she promised, smiling. He glanced at his watch. It's getting late, I've got to go. I can't wait to see you again, baby, she said, clearly enjoying herself. Same here, he replied as he walked out. Once he left, Marissa sat on the bed with a satisfied grin. Oh, Greg, she said to the empty room. You have no idea what's coming. After watching the video, I just sat there, stunned, tears sliding down my face. The level of her deceit hit harder than I was prepared for. With a heavy breath, I picked up the phone and called Gina. I just watched the video, I told her. You were right. It was illuminating. Her reply came quickly. What's your next move? Burn it to the ground, I said, voice firm and cold. Consider it done, she replied. And about the men? Anything we can do there? Unfortunately, no, Gina explained. Alienation of affection lawsuits aren't allowed in this state. I let out a bitter laugh. Don't worry, I muttered. Life has a way of catching up with people like them. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, I added, echoing my father's earlier words. Gina chuckled faintly. I've got to go, she said. I'll begin prepping the divorce papers and make sure everything is in order. If Marissa tries to flee, it won't be on her terms. Thanks, Gina. I really appreciate everything, I said sincerely. Just focus on taking care of your daughters, she said. When the call ended, I leaned back on the couch, wiping away the steady flow of tears. 15 years. 15 years of loyalty, trust, and love, given to someone who saw our life as a game. The pain was unbearable. A few minutes later, my phone rang again. Marissa. "Hi," I answered. "Hey, Greg," she said. "Are you okay?" "It's been a rough day," I replied honestly. "How about you?" "I'm just wrapping things up at work. I think I closed another deal," she said, sounding cheerful. "That's good," I answered flatly. "I'll be home soon, probably in half an hour," she said. "Okay, see you then." "Love you," she added in that fake, overly sweet tone. "Me too," I said, then hung up. I wondered for a second if she noticed that I didn't say "I love you" back, but then realized I didn't care anymore. I gathered the evidence I had printed earlier, 4 pictures of Marissa with different men, all laid out on one page. I slid them into a folder and placed it on the kitchen table where I planned to confront her. With nothing else to do but wait, I made myself a cup of coffee and sat down. An hour passed, then 2. Still no sign of Marissa. At first I figured she was avoiding coming home, but as time went on, anxiety crept in. I called her phone, voicemail. I left a message, then followed it with a text. No reply. 3 hours after our call, and still no word. Worry took root. I began to wonder if something serious had happened. Nearly 3.5 hours later, the house phone rang. I rushed to answer it, praying it was her. "Greg Watson?" I said. "Mr. Watson, this is Angela Barnes from Mercy Hospital. Are you related to Marissa Watson?" "She's my wife," I answered, my stomach sinking. "Mr. Watson, your wife was in an accident and has been brought here for treatment. Can you come as soon as possible?" "Yes, of course," I said, panic creeping into my voice. "Is she okay? What happened?" "Sorry, sir, I can't give you any details," Angela replied. "Her doctor will speak with you when you arrive. Please come to the courtesy desk, and they'll direct you from there." "Thank you," I said, trying to steady myself. After hanging up, I stuffed the envelope with the photos into my jacket pocket. I thought about calling Dad or Loretta, but decided to wait until I knew more. I drove to the hospital, nerves tight in my chest, parked fast, and rushed inside. At the courtesy desk, I approached the middle-aged woman seated there. "I'm Greg Watson. I'm here for Marissa Watson." She looked up her info, then gave a nod to a nearby staff member. "Please take Mr. Watson to the ICU," the woman came around and silently led me down the hallway. When we reached the ICU, a police officer stood waiting. "Mr. Watson?" he asked. "That's me." "I'm Officer Simpson. I responded to your wife's accident," he began. "She was driving through the intersection at 3rd and Main when a drunk driver ran a red light and slammed into the driver's side of her car." My heart sank deeper with every word. "I'm very sorry," he added gently. "It's okay," I murmured, though nothing about it felt remotely okay. "Her car was towed to the junkyard, not much left of it." He handed me a business card. "That's the tow company. If you need anything, feel free to reach out." "Thank you, officer," I said, accepting the card with a shaky hand. When the officer stepped away, a man in a white coat came toward me. "Greg Watson?" "Yes. I'm Dr. Blake. I'm overseeing your wife's treatment. Can we talk privately for a moment?" "Of course." He led me into a small consultation room, shut the door, and took a seat across from me at a round table. "How is she?" I asked right away. "She has multiple broken bones and internal injuries," he began. "She also suffered a serious head injury. We've placed her in a medically induced coma to help her recover." I nodded slowly, mentally preparing for the next blow. "There's something else," he said carefully. "Initial tests suggest she may be HIV positive. We've sent her blood samples for further analysis, but confirmation will take time." My breath caught in my throat. "I just found out this morning that she has gonorrhea," I told him, still wrapping my mind around everything. Are you receiving treatment for that? Yes. That's good. Still, I strongly recommend you get tested for HIV as soon as possible. If you can visit your primary care physician tomorrow, that would be ideal. Knowing your status is important. I nodded, absorbing every word. How long will she be in the coma? I asked, shifting the focus back to Marissa. It depends on how she responds. It could be anywhere from 10 days to 2 weeks. After that, her stay here will likely continue, depending on how well she recovers. Can I see her? Of course, Dr. Blake said, rising. She needs all the support she can get. He pointed down the hallway. Room 5, just over there. Thank you, doctor, I said, shaking his hand before heading toward the room. As I stepped inside, the sight of her took the wind out of me. Her face was bruised and swollen, stitched in places. One leg was fully encased in a cast, and she was covered in bandages. She looked like she had barely escaped death. I whispered a silent prayer, then pulled off my wedding ring. I took out the envelope with the photos, wrote her name on it, and placed the ring inside before sealing it shut. Turning to the nurse monitoring her vitals, I held it out. Can you make sure she gets this when she wakes up? Of course, the nurse said kindly. You can place it on that tray over there. Thank you, I said, gently setting it down so it would be one of the first things she saw when she opened her eyes. I lingered beside her for a moment longer, heart aching. Seeing her like this tore me apart. She still had on her wedding rings, so I carefully slipped them off and placed them in my pocket. Goodbye, Marissa, I whispered. I'll see you later. I nodded to the nurse, who gave me a warm, understanding smile. Then I walked out. Off at your grandparents'. Then by 4:30, I was driving them to my parents' house. I told them Marissa was awake and that I'd be meeting Loretta and her best friend there. Let us know how it goes, son, Dad said as I dropped the girls off. I will, I promised. I'll come back for the girls afterward. Good. Then you can have some of Mom's lasagna when you get back, he added with a warm smile. Mom's lasagna had a magical way of making even the worst days seem better. Sounds perfect, I replied, feeling just a tiny lift in my mood as I drove toward the hospital. The process server stood beside Marissa's hospital bed and handed her the documents. You are being served with divorce papers, he said formally. Marissa took them with slightly trembling hands. There was a long pause as her eyes scanned the first page. The color drained from her face. I see, she finally murmured, placing the documents beside her. I turned to Loretta, who had remained silent, her face solemn. Thanks for coming, I told her. Of course, she replied softly, her eyes fixed on her sister. Turning back to Marissa, I felt a strange mixture of relief and sadness. We need to get this resolved, for everyone's sake. Marissa nodded, eyes still down. I understand, she whispered. I never wanted it to come to this. I know, I said, though I wasn't entirely convinced. But here we are. The room was heavy with everything left unsaid. I figured it was time to go. I'll let you rest, I said. Marissa didn't look up. Thank you, Greg, and I'm sorry, she added, her voice cracking slightly. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Loretta and I stepped out, leaving Marissa with her thoughts and the papers in her lap. Loretta gently squeezed my arm. You okay? She asked. I will be, I said, managing a faint smile. Thanks for coming. It meant a lot. She gave me a quick hug. Call me if you need anything. I will. As I pulled away from the hospital, I felt the burden of the past week ease ever so slightly. The future was still foggy, but at least now there was a path forward. Earlier, when the process server handed Marissa the envelope, he'd also snapped a photo for legal proof. "You've been served," he said curtly before exiting the room. "You couldn't even wait until I got out of the hospital?" Marissa asked, her voice edged with disbelief. "No," I said firmly. "You were the one planning to disappear. I'm just fast-forwarding your schedule by a few years." Her eyes scanned my face, looking for traces of the man she once knew. "Do the girls know?" she asked, her tone softening. "Yes, they know," I replied. "And they're not too happy with you right now. That's why they're not here. And you don't need to worry about being stuck with them. I'm going for full custody." Her lips parted, surprised. "And visitation?" "I'll allow liberal visitation. If they want to see you, they can. But as of now, they don't." She blinked, clearly not expecting that level of certainty. "And you? Do you hate me too?" she asked, her voice low. "Hate's a strong word," I answered coolly. "Let's just say whatever I once thought of you, it's gone." She nodded slowly, as though the weight of that hit harder than anything else. "Do you think you could ever forgive me?" she asked, her voice tinged with desperation. "Maybe someday," I said, "when I can look at our daughters and not think about what you did to this family." I paused. And for the record, I had their DNA tested. They're mine. Her eyes widened slightly, shocked I'd already taken that step. "That won't change anything, Greg," she murmured, almost to herself. I shifted the conversation. "Once you're discharged, you're not coming back home. I've rented you an apartment. Loretta will help you get settled." Marissa looked to her sister, who finally gave a small nod of confirmation. "All your stuff's already there," I continued. "The utilities are on in your name." I handed her another envelope. "This is your half of our joint savings, minus 2 months' rent and the deposit for the apartment. Since your car was totaled, you'll be getting an insurance payout too." She took the envelope, her fingers hesitant. The silence in the room thickened with finality. "Oh, and one more thing," I added. "I know about the escape fund you set up. My lawyer froze that account. If you sign the divorce papers, she'll release the money." "Minus your half, of course," Marissa said, her expression now a mix of shock and resignation. "I'll fight you for it," she snapped, her voice suddenly defiant. "I don't—" Hospital behind felt like closing a painful chapter. By 4:30, I had dropped the girls off at my parents' house. I told them Marissa was awake and that I'd be meeting Loretta and her best friend there. "Let us know how it goes, son," Dad said as I handed off the girls. "I will," I replied. "I'll come back to pick them up afterward." "Good. And you can have some of Mom's lasagna when you're back," he added with a comforting smile. Mom's lasagna really had a way of softening the hardest days. "Sounds perfect," I said, managing a small smile as I drove to the hospital. Inside Marissa's hospital room, the process server handed her a packet. "You are being served with divorce papers," he said formally. Marissa accepted the envelope, her hands trembling slightly. She stared at the top page in silence, her face paling. "I see," she finally murmured, setting the documents beside her on the bed. I turned to Loretta, who had been quietly watching. "Thanks for coming," I told her. "Of course," she replied softly, her gaze never leaving her sister. Looking back at Marissa, I felt a complicated tangle of relief and pain. "We need to resolve this, for everyone's sake." Marissa gave a faint nod, eyes still lowered. "I understand," she whispered. "I never wanted it to come to this." "I know," I said, though deep down I questioned that. "But here we are." The air was thick with unspoken emotion. I knew it was time to leave. I'll let you get some rest, I said. Marissa didn't look up. Thank you, Greg. And I'm sorry, she added, her voice cracking. I nodded silently. Loretta and I stepped out, leaving Marissa alone with the documents and her thoughts. Loretta squeezed my arm gently. Are you okay? I will be, I said, mustering a smile. Thank you for being here. It means a lot. She gave me a quick hug. Call me if you need anything. I will. Driving away, I felt the weight of the week ease. Just a little. There was still a long road ahead, but at least now I had a direction. Earlier, as the server handed Marissa the documents, he also snapped a photo for legal proof. You've been served, he said briskly, then walked out. You couldn't wait until I was out of the hospital? Marissa asked, disbelief in her voice. No, I replied evenly. You were the one planning to run. I'm just speeding things up. She searched my face for a trace of the man she once knew. Do the girls know? She asked softly. Yes, I said. And they're not happy. That's why they're not here. And don't worry, you won't be stuck with them. I'm seeking full custody. I suppose I don't get a say, she asked, surprised at my decisiveness. You'll have visitation if they want it, but for now they don't. Her face faltered, not expecting such firmness. Do you hate me too? She asked. Hate's a strong word, I answered calmly. Let's just say my respect for you has disappeared. She looked down, absorbing my words. Could you ever forgive me? She asked, her voice quivering. Maybe, I said, when I can look at our daughters and not think of what you did. Oh, and by the way, I had their DNA tested. They're mine. Her eyes widened slightly, surprised I'd gone that far. That won't change anything, Greg, she murmured. True, I replied. But once you're discharged, you're not coming home. I rented you an apartment. Loretta will help you move. Marissa looked over at her sister, who nodded once. All your things are there. Utilities are in your name, I continued. I handed her another envelope. This is your half of the joint savings, minus the deposit and 2 months' rent. Since your car was totaled, you'll get an insurance payout too. She took the envelope hesitantly. The silence between us felt final. I also know about the secret account, I added. My attorney froze it. If you sign the divorce papers, she'll release it, minus my half. Marissa blinked. I'll fight you for it, she said, defiance flaring back into her voice. I don't think that would be smart, I countered. Unless you want the evidence I've gathered to go public. It's damning. Her defiance shrank at my words. Have your lawyer look over the papers, I said. I think you'll find the terms fair, given everything. Marissa turned to Loretta, clearly searching for support, but found none. You should have listened, Loretta said sharply. You lied to Greg, you lied to your kids, and you lied to me. I agreed to help you move in after discharge, she added. But after that, I'm done. You need to fix this, starting with a real apology to your husband and your daughters. Marissa began to cry. I'm sorry, she sobbed, looking to Loretta for sympathy. That and a few bucks will get you a coffee, Loretta shot back. You're not getting near my family again until you take real responsibility. Still crying, Marissa looked to me. Greg, I'm so sorry. I know it doesn't mean much now, but I do love you. You're right, it doesn't mean much, I said coldly. Sign the papers. She nodded, overwhelmed and quiet. Goodbye, Marissa. As I turned to leave, she called out, Greg, can I call the girls? You can call them, I said, pausing at the door. "But it's up to them if they want to talk." "I understand. Thank you for that, at least." "You're welcome," I said without turning around. As I left the room, I noticed the judging stares from a few nurses. They might not have agreed with how I handled things, but it wasn't their call. Back at my parents' place, surrounded by family, I tried to settle myself with a generous plate of Mom's lasagna. The familiar flavor offered a moment of comfort after such a bitter day. 3 months later, the divorce was finalized. I was not only legally free from Marissa, I was HIV negative, and thankfully, so was she. Gina surprised me with a check, over $450,000, half of the money Marissa had secretly stashed. I funneled the entire amount into college funds for Lisa and Ginger. Life settled into a new normal. The girls were my center, the steady ground beneath me as I adjusted to life as a single dad. Raising teenage daughters alone wasn't always easy, but Mom's advice and support helped me through. Marissa, for her part, began to stabilize. After a year of slow, cautious rebuilding, the girls started seeing her again. Brief afternoon visits that seemed to go well. She got a job with a new real estate firm after being quietly let go from her old one. According to the girls, she was doing better and being more honest. Meanwhile, I started noticing something I hadn't before. Single women at church sending me home with pies, casseroles, even lasagna. My daughters took notice too. "Dad, you need to start dating again," Lisa said one evening. "You can't be alone forever." "I wouldn't even know where to start," I admitted. "And I'm not alone. You two keep me plenty busy." "We won't be around forever," Ginger chimed in with a half joke, half warning. "It's easy, Dad. Just ask someone to dinner. You know how to do that, right?" I chuckled, but her words stuck with me. Maybe it was time. That Wednesday, at the church coffee shop, I ran into Rhonda Carson. A widow raising her teenage daughter, Rhonda had recently given me a casserole I couldn't stop thinking about. "Hi, Rhonda. How are you?" I asked, remembering how comforting her meal had been. "Hanging in there, Greg," she smiled. "You?" "Doing okay. That casserole you gave me, it was amazing. Thank you. Glad you liked it. It's tough going it alone, huh?" she said with empathy. "Yeah, but we manage," I nodded, finding comfort in our shared experience. We chatted easily over coffee, bonding over the joys and trials of single parenthood. Eventually, I found the nerve. "Rhonda, I'm new to this, but would you like to have dinner with me sometime? Maybe Friday?" She smiled warmly. "Yes, Greg, I'd like that." "Great," I grinned. "How about that new Texas Roadhouse?" "Sounds perfect," she said. It was a date, coffee shop. I felt a lightness I hadn't experienced in what felt like forever. Maybe this truly was the right time to start over. Not just for me, but for all of us. The girls were thrilled when they heard about my date with Rhonda, and they liked the idea of spending the evening with Linda, Rhonda's daughter. Everything seemed to fall into place. That Friday, I invited the girls over to my parents', and then I headed out for dinner with Rhonda. She looked absolutely lovely in a denim skirt, and our night together was everything I'd hoped for. Easy, fun, and relaxed. We didn't get too personal that evening, but as I walked her to her door, Rhonda gave me a sincere, warm kiss. As I turned to head back to my car, I caught sight of 3 curious faces peeking from her window. They looked like they were cheering us on. "That was the best night I've had in a long time," Rhonda said, hugging me tightly. "Me too," I replied honestly. "What if we do this again soon?" she asked, her eyes twinkling. "Maybe next time we can have a quiet night in," she added, her voice a little playful as her hand brushed lightly against my leg. A tingle of excitement ran through me. "That sounds like a plan," I said, enjoying the gentle flirtation. The girls were over the moon when I told them how well the date went, and I couldn't deny it. I was too. Spending time with Rhonda felt effortless and refreshing. I don't know exactly where this path may lead, but for the first time in a long while, I'm open to finding out.